Salutations, y'all. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nkechi, and this is gonna be my July wrap up. Not gonna lie, y'all, July was rough. Like, what the actual fuck was July? It was such a major flop. If I had people have a flop era, July was my flop era. Like, what was going on there? Granted, though, my quantity was really low, but my quality was pretty high, all things considered. So it's not the worst that it could have possibly happened. I mean, honestly, as far as reading months are concerned, I could just end up going through an entire month, not finish reading a single book, not even reading a single page of a book. So technically speaking, this is not the worst. Like, this is not the true bottom of the barrel, but based on what I'm used to so far and my reading career, I guess, this is definitely the worst, because what the actual hell? I don't know what happened, y'all. I don't know. Gosh. But I guess the couple highlights for July is that I had two new favorites of the year, so that's great reading wise. Now, I will say, though, as far as this wrap up video is concerned, there's not gonna be a lot of talk regarding the books because I read so little. So in this wrap up, I am just gonna include just everything media wise I've consumed, so that'll be movies and TV show seasons. If you don't care about me talking about movies and TV shows, just read up to the point where I talk about the books, and then that's it, okay? Just click out the video, leave an emoji, all the things. So that's what we're gonna do with this video, and that way, for anyone who is curious to know about all the movies and TV shows I've been watching this past month, you have that information here. So let's just get into the July reading stats. So I've only read 3 books in July. Okay, usually I would have a graphic around here or somewhere on the screen regarding the Storygraph overview page. I'm not going to include that here because that would include all the star ratings already for the month, since it is based on the highest rated books, or all the ratings depending on how many books you read in the month and stuff, on Storygraph. So I'm not going to include the graphic here, but I would include the graphic at the end of when I just talk about the books I've read section, just for people who are wondering about that. But anyways, back to the stats. So again, I read 3 books, not a lot. It's not the absolute lowest amount of books I finished within a month, but considering the fact that I'm not employed, this is definitely the lowest. All of the books actually I read were 2025 releases. So I actually find that to be very fascinating when I think about that I only read new releases, and 2 of them were arcs and stuff. So, all right, making progress through that. I did DNF a lot of books though in July. I don't know how many books I've DNF'd within a month, but I would say, as far as my recent memory, and definitely for this year, July was the most I've DNF'd in a month. I DNF'd 15 books, y'all. Some of them were arcs, others were also just generally new releases, but I DNF'd so many books. It was just, it truly amazes me that I managed to DNF that many books, despite the fact I only managed to finish reading 3. Number of pages is 1,163 pages. Hours listened, 25.38 hours, and my average reading was a 4.08. So granted, I have only read 3 books, but my average rating is still above a 4-star. And that is because of the fact that 2 out of the 3 books were 5 stars. One of the books that I read was below 3, so it averaged out to be pretty high that way. It's quite actually interesting on how the month of July I managed to read the highest rated books I could possibly read, but also managed to read something that was very, very low. Thankfully, nothing has gone below 2 stars. And as far as genres, the most read genre that I've managed to read in July was actually historical fiction. There was one book that's horror, that's historical, and the other one that's literary and historical. So yeah, I was really not in the mood to be reading anything speculative at all. But I did manage to be pretty consistent in reading a romance book every single month so far this year. Now, without further ado, let's actually talk about the 3 books that I managed to finish in the month of July. So first up, I started off with a low point, honestly, by finally finished reading this arc that I actually put on pause for also a couple months, was 10 Incarnations of Rebellion by Vaishnavi Patel. This is actually the first time I finished reading a Vaishnavi Patel novel. I tried to read Kake a couple years ago. Wasn't quite interested at the time, so I managed to DNF it. I didn't get to the Goddess of River yet. I'm still kind of interested. But 10 Incarnations of Rebellion, I was really excited for it to even request an arc. So thanks to Ballantine Books for approving me of getting this arc, but this was actually a pretty major miss. Not gonna lie. I even wrote a pretty long review already on my Instagram, but I did also write it down in my reading journal. So I'm just gonna go through my reading journal review because it's also pretty similar to my Instagram review, and also it's been the beginning of July and I just didn't even like it. It was actually pretty disappointing, not gonna lie. So just a general premise before I really look through my review here. 10 Incarnations of Rebellion is basically inspired by the 10 avatars of Vishnu, which is based on Hindu mythology. This is a historical literary novel that is also altered in history because Vaishnavi Patel wanted to explore what would happen if basically the India's independence movement basically was just that didn't happen in a certain time period, just moved back like another half a century or so. Like what if like India did not gain independence from the British? How on earth would they be able to gain independence since Great Britain was able to stay in India for much longer? So that's ideally, I think that's the main idea of what Patel was trying to explore in that novel, but I really was not a fan, honestly, of the execution. That was my main problem, honestly. A lot of it was the execution. All right, so again, I'm just going to read right here through my reading journal. Patel has a way of portraying emotion and character motivations that intrigues me enough to check out her backlist. My favorite characters were Yashu, which is a friend of Kalki, and sometimes Fazia, who is a closer friend to Kalki. Kalki is the protagonist and least interesting out of the three. This story does follow mostly through Kalki's perspective. It's literally her journey from when she was, I think, her late teens to like her late 20s. I think it's about a decade of her life, from when she was 18 to 28, give or take. And each chapter, there's actually only 10 chapters inspired by the 10 avatars of Vishnu, again, Hindu mythology, and it also gives a sense of like how she's grown and changed and also become like a leader for like the rebellion. What else did I write? As the reader, we were given a preface to inform us how Patel decided to create an alternate history novel asking how would India gain independence from the British if their presence was more violent and had another revolution decades after the first attempt. I'm not familiar with India's independence, but the book, like independence movement I meant, but the book kept referencing to real life independence movements that were happening in the 1960s. It was talking about South Africa apartheid, it was talking about civil rights era, it was also talking about Nigeria. It did have a brief mention of Nigeria's independence, which I'm a little bit more familiar now regarding the independence of Nigeria. When I got that part into the novel, it really made me go like, these other independence movements that were successful. But of course, you know, they're talking about like the fact that their own independence movement that wasn't successful and had to do it again. It felt in a way that like it wanted to criticize the way that these other independence movements went about how they gained independence. Novel prides itself with their use in nonviolent protest and looked down on the necessity of violent protests and actions, which confuses the hell out of me when other independence movements moved forward when violence was enacted against their colonizers. Like, this book was really priding itself in the fact that it was non-violent, that it was very irritating to me especially when you're referencing other independence movies around their own time, because like the actual story does take place in the 60s, and based on what the little research I found out, the real life India's independence movement was happening like a couple decades before the alternate history version. So like pushing it back a couple decades, it does confuse me. But also it's really weird to me that now you're choosing the 60s where a lot of other countries were gaining independence and have a more prevalent also just independent civil rights movements around the world. And now you're putting yourself above nonviolence, when even though I don't know any other independence movement where like you enact non-violent ways to gain independence, you know, like, and again, like I said, maybe this is just a callback to the fact of real actual history for India gaining independence from Britain, that they went the non-violent route and it worked for them. If that's the case, I still don't like the fact you're still priding yourself like that, and as if that's the way to gain independence and to enact rebellion is through non-violent ways. I fundamentally, that makes no fucking sense to me, especially not in 2025, okay? This is 2025. You know what I mean? Like, we've been getting results now, but also in the past with violent actions against colonizers. Also, while I liked Patel's writing style, I felt as though she was telling the reader what these characters saw and felt instead of just showing us. That was a major thing. I really hated that. I was told certain events happened and wish the story was told in multiple POVs. Unfortunately, this is only in Kelki's perspective, and I understand that it's just about Kelki and her journey, but I found Kelki to be very irritating and boring. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I would have loved to read this story in Yashu and or Fazia's perspectives instead of Kelki, because Yashu and Fazia had a little bit more in stake regarding what was going on with these independence movements, especially with Yashu, since she was in a different caste, and then they did have the caste system, so the caste system was still in place too. So for Yashu, it would have been way more interesting because she's in a lower caste, but also for Orban Fazia because she's also a different religious group. That also would have been really cool. I think Fazia is Muslim, and then Yashu was a different religious group and a lower caste. So I like the fact that we could have possibly explored some more complexities there, but I also understand maybe for Vaishnavi Patel, figure more Hindu because that's just more something she's more familiar with and stuff like that. Sure, but it still made the book boring. Kalki was passionate for India's independence, but not knowledgeable enough to understand how a rebellion turns into a revolution. Thankfully, she had other people around her, but I was still not a fan of the constant messaging of non-violence over violence protesting and actions. Also, the novel left very little room for nuance on the use for violent protests. The pacing was quite slow, and the general structure of the novel was repetitive. I like the inclusion of other avatars of Vishnu, because while the book was mirroring the aspects regarding these, I guess, learning lessons from the avatars of Vishnu, they also did explain towards the end of each chapter what those avatars were in actual Hindu mythology, so you are educated even throughout. But it got really old pretty quickly. That towards the end, we always knew that. I was like, okay, but can we integrate the story a little bit more seamlessly? Because it just felt like a boring way to tell me this story. Like, I don't know, what I even feel like, what? Okay, rude. I already forgot where my thought was going. Point is, could have been more seamless. Also held a while to redeem a British colonizer who attempted to rape someone. Yeah, that happened. That was not good. So I give this book 2.25 stars. I probably in retrospect lower it to 2 stars, honestly, because yeah, that was just that was not good. Okay, not a fan of that one, and it was very disappointing. I'm still curious though to check out her backlist. I do still want to read the Goddess of the River. I am still curious to try Kaike again, but I don't know about moving forward. I will be reading anything from Vaishnavi Patel, and who knows if I actually will read any of her backlist. I might just not even read anything more from her. I don't know, but this one was just such a major miss thematically and execution-wise that it was so infuriating. Which is why, for my next book, I actually read something that was really good, because when I read something that's really, really not good, I need to make sure that my next read is at least 4.5 stars or higher, okay? Because, nah. I can't have another flop back to back. It just does not work for my brain, especially when you're already in a reading slump. So, I think 3 weeks after I finished reading Vaishnavi Patel's newest book, I was approved of getting an ALC for August Lane by Regina Black. Now, I have mentioned Regina Black before. I think my May and June wrap up because I read her debut novel. This is her sophomore novel, and it came out on July 29th, and I was so excited that I got the ALC that I decided, like, you know what, let me just start reading this. So this is an adult contemporary romance following basically black country music people, basically. The idea is that this is a second chance romance because we have Luke and August who knew each other since they were in high school. They did a lot of like deep traumatic stuff going on when they were in high school, but then they kind of like August was wrote a song. It's called Another Love Song. And like working with like Luke as well. And then Luke wanted to get more into like be like a famous artist basically for country music. And he did not credit August for writing the lyrics. So he got very famous and popular for it, and she got nothing out of it. And I gotta say, when I read the synopsis, first of all, I wanted to read this book because of the cover. And then when I read the synopsis, I was like, how is this a second chance romance? Like, how on earth are they gonna come back together? Because I don't know if I could forgive Luke for what he did. Okay? That was the main thing about this book, is regarding forgiveness. And not just with this romance, but with other characters for other things. But for romance-wise, between Luke and August, I was trying to figure out how on earth is August going to forgive him. Like, obviously she loves him, but she also is angry at him for basically, like, in a way, kind of like erasing her. As far as, like, the story and stuff. As far as, like, the song and writing the song and, like, what that song really meant. It was very hurtful. It really broke her heart, honestly. It was rough. It was very rough. So then I think it was like over a decade later, they're like in their early 30s. He comes back to like their small town and stuff, and yeah, they reunite again. It's a lot of drama, messiness ensues. It does remind me of, again, like the Art of Scandal. So I do like the fact that Regina Black is consistent from her debut to her sophomore novel in like the best possible way. Because some people are like consistent and they don't really see change, but Regina Black is doing something different in August Lane than she did in the Art of Scandal. August Lane, the main theme, yeah, actually, one of the major themes actually for the book is forgiveness for people who harmed you. Sometimes you forgive them, sometimes it's really hard to forgive them, sometimes you may not ever forgive someone. Do they deserve that forgiveness or not? It depends. It's up to the person, honestly, and what they did. It's really up to you as far as forgiveness is concerned. And I was also really invested also for the romance as well. I wanted to see how Luke felt guilty about what he did and stuff, but also for August and how she also felt guilt even still loving Luke after what he did to her, honestly. She felt like she shouldn't still be in love with him even after what he did to her, you know? So it was like, how you can love someone like that who like betrayed you like that, but you still want them anyways. I really like how Regina Black continues to write complex, messy, nuanced characters, especially since this is a Black romance. I love that. Like, we need that, so it doesn't seem like, like it's not like a struggle love as far as some people may say about some Black romance books, but this one is a story where we follow very real people making very real, messy, complex but nuanced decisions, honestly. And I also love that since this was ALC, I did get a chance to, like, with the narrators, they were very much lively and vibrant, that I could distinguish where we were in time, since it is also a dual timeline. We do get a timeline of when they were teenagers and a timeline when they were in their early 30s, more modern day. And also, we do get some transcripts of an interview between a podcaster and August's mother named JoJo, who is pretty much a famous, popular Black country music artist. I also really appreciated how Regina Black talked about country music and Black people's contributions to country music. That was also really, really important to the story. I really, really love that inclusion. Yeah, I don't know. This was just really, really good. And I think I actually prefer August Lane over the Art of Scandal. I mean, it's not like I was much into, age guy romance. Second chance, I don't know about second chance romance. I'm very picky regarding my second chance romance, but this one was a really good one. It's just, I think Regina Black knows how to explore the messiness and complexity of human emotions and desires, and then working with the trope, that it doesn't feel tropey, but you see that it follows through with a trope, but also you understand how we got there, no matter how messy and dramatic everything all was. Definitely recommend. 5 stars, a new favorite. Regina Black has definitely cemented herself as a new all-time favorite author. And then last but not least, as far as July, I did finally read a book that I actually own, and it's a new release. And I'm so grateful that I finally read this book, because I finally now read a Stephen Graham Jones book, y'all. I finally finished reading The Buffalo Hunter. And I really love this one, honestly. It took me a while to read, especially the first third. I think it took me over a week to get through the first third or so. Or actually, maybe a week and a half. I can't remember. It took me a while, okay, to read the first third. But then the last, 2/3, I had to block in because I wanted to finish another book before the month ended, okay? I was determined to finish reading this book before August. And I did it. So, this book here. I think you've seen it around, especially if you're someone who's been seeing those, if you've watched Sinners, read this recommendations. As someone who did watch Sinners towards the end of July, which we will talk about in this video if you're interested as far as the movies and TV shows I've been watching. Spoiler alert, I did watch Sinners. And since I watched Sinners and read this book, I will say they are comparable. But this book here is so, so good. Now, granted, since this is my first time reading anything by Stephen Graham Jones, the writing style was a little bit hard for me to get through a little bit, because I wasn't really, I found Stephen Graham Jones' sense for stream of conscious to be something that does work for my brain, but it still took me time to really absorb, especially with the different tones as I was reading this stream of consciousness. Because technically we have 3 different streams of consciousness. We have Etsy in the 2012 timeline with her stream of consciousness that's digital diary entries. Then we have Arthur Bucharn, who's a Lutheran pastor's journal entries, his stream of consciousness, how he weaves through stories. And then also we have Goodstep, when he's recounting his story that's being transcribed by Arthur Bucharn, that stream of consciousness as well. it's a lot, okay, going through all the stories. But I will have to say, I think this is so masterfully done, and I had such a great time reading it. And I did also kind of tab it, although I will say that these tabs are not as consistent. I was just highlighting, and then I just went with whatever color tabs I felt in the moment. So it's not the most consistent tabbing system at all, but I just wanted the tabs to represent how much I was really enjoying my time reading the Buffalo Hunter Hunter. Apparently this is Stephen Graham Jones's first foray into writing not just a vampire story, but also just historical horror, and I think he does such a great job with it. He definitely did a lot of research regarding a very certain particular event that actually is not really remembered in history, but he also finally shed light in that kind of story that it is based on like an actual real event. This was just really, really good. I really like the horror. I like the way it is, the vampire lore stuff, it's definitely is still based on like other vampiric stuff I read from the past, but he does have his own particular twist to it, especially since this is indeed a revenge story. And I have to say, props to Stephen Graham Jones for how he ended this story. I know for some people, I actually did look up some reviews on here, that some people really did not like the ending of this book. I really appreciate the ending. I think the ending really makes sense for how we started in the middle, like all the motivations and like also what even happened. Like a terrible event happened, okay, that inspired, well, I don't say inspired, but like this book is like based upon, especially for Gustav's motivation for this revenge. The ending makes sense for all of that, and I really, really appreciate that. There also is a little bit of ambiguity as well regarding the ending specifically that I also really appreciate, but it still was satisfying enough for me that I don't need to know every single answer for the end. So I will have to say this was just really, really good. 5 stars. Honestly, I don't even know what was a favorite of the month because I did go through the Kpop rating system, but the Buffalo Hunter Hunter and August Lane both have the same Kpop rating, so I don't even know which one would be the ultimate favorite of the month. But since The Art of Scandal was a personal favorite for me in June, I'm going to give it to Stephen Graham Jones for the best book of July. This was just so fun. And I did get a chance to go through the audiobook as well. Highly recommend checking out the audiobook. It is well narrated. There are, especially with certain sections of the book too, it has certain like effects. So I definitely do recommend the audiobook. And I do recommend, if you have not read a Stephen Graham Jones book, to probably hybrid read it, because that's what I did, okay? I was not going to just listen to the audiobook and then like listen all the way through without checking, like reading with my eyeballs, because I needed to really focus on what was going on here. But that's just me though. That's just me. And also I was going through a really bad reading slump. So, maybe you don't need to do a hybrid read, but I think the audiobook would really help. Especially with regarding Blackfeet terms and the language. There were words that Gustav was using that is based on actual like Blackfeet, the Blackfeet language and terminology. So the audiobook did help with that to get through it. So that's just my personal hot tip there. All in all, this was really, really good. And I look forward to reading more by Stephen Graham Jones. And that's it as far as all my thoughts regarding the books I've read. So if you're not interested in me talking about any movies and TV show that I watch in July, then, end it off here. If you made this far into the video, you're not sure what to say, and you don't care about movies and TV shows, but you want to leave me an emoji, let me know you've watched all my thoughts on the books I've read. Leave me a bison emoji or a water buffalo emoji, whichever one the bison one. Just leave me a bison emoji. Let me know you made it this far. In honor of the Buffalo Hunter Hunter, obviously. Now let's get into movies. All the movies I watched. I'm literally going to go in order of worst to best, because I did watch some pretty mediocre but also just really irritating movies in July. So yeah, but also because since I didn't feel in the mood to read, I was just gonna watch something shitty. So if I was gonna watch something shitty, I might as well just watch it, and I get a chance to talk to you all about it briefly. I don't want to get too deep into synopses for each one of these movies, because I gotta talk about TV shows too. So I'll try to speed run through my way through this, so bear with me here. So first up, Namaste Wahala 2020. I've been wanting to watch this movie for years, ever since I think I saw it briefly on Netflix, I think a few years ago. This is Namaste Wahala, and based on the title, it is a Nollywood movie and a Bollywood movie mixed into one. Yeah, so think of every stereotypical tropes from a Nollywood or a Bollywood movie, and then combine it all together. That's basically Namaste Wahala, and it did not work well. I really wanted to watch this movie because I was like, Nigerian and Indian person coming together? Yes, why not? But I could definitely tell though, because even though it is a 2020 film. It came out late 2020 in Nigeria, and you could definitely tell that a lot of the film was filmed during the time of quarantine, and it did make things very empty and kind of lifeless in the background of the film, so that wasn't fun. But one thing I really did not like though was how over dramatic everything was. Like, the script was pretty cheesy and a little bit cringy, not gonna lie, but a lot of it was so dramatic to the point I couldn't take anything seriously. And it was also kind of to the point that it was also really boring. I wanted something to be very fun and like, I don't know, I just wanted to have fun with Namaste Wahala, but like, nah. I wasn't having any fun. I was so bored. Oh my gosh. I can't remember what I gave it on Letterboxd. I probably given it 1 star. Maybe. I don't remember. Maybe it was 1 star. Who knows? And then as far as the next worst thing, that's still better than Namaste Wahala though, was a Logos Love Story 2025. So yes, this came out this year. This was another boring Nollywood film, but it was not as dramatic as Namaste Wahala, so that's why it's a little bit above Namaste Wahala, but it was still pretty boring. And also, it was not a rom-com. I was hoping that this would be a rom-com. It was not. It was so not a rom-com. I think it was actually like a lawsuit that was going on that took up a lot of the runtime actually for the film, so that was irritating, even though this is supposed to be like a focused, go-getter Nigerian woman who falls in love with like a rapper, like a Afrobeat rapper or something, and it was just boring. Also, that guy, I don't even see how the female main character even was liking the main guy like that. Like, I could not see their chemistry at all. And also, he was not helping her either, because like, she was also supposed to be like I don't know about an assistant, but just someone who's there to make sure he gets from one place to another on time, basically. In a way, I see that's just babysitting him, not gonna lie. And he was not helping her at all, giving her so many close calls to the point she almost got fired from her job. Like, child, it was such a mess. Well, one of her jobs, but oh my gosh, such a mess. What's next? Oh, another one that's also on Netflix. Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, 2023. This is the sequel to Chicken Run that came out in 2005. I don't know why it took them why did they decide like 18 years or something, or whatever, how long they decided to start working on this project, but Aardman and DreamWorks decided to make a sequel to Chicken Run. It did not need a sequel. I really loved Chicken Run when I was watching it as a kid, and I still have a certain place in my heart for it as well, the original film, but this sequel, not it. I'm still mad at the fact that Mrs. Tweedy was alive for this sequel. I thought that maybe it was like a twin sister or something, so it's not the actual original Mrs. Tweedy. No, it was the original Mrs. Tweedy. That bitch died in the end of Chicken Run, okay? You can't tell me nothing. She died. But I digress. I was just not a fan of Ginger and her daughter's dynamic. It was really, really frustrating. I was like, that's just unnecessary in the way that happened. So fucking dumb. So don't recommend that one either. So the next movie, and we actually got some pretty good movies, some more entertaining movies. One of them is White Chicks 2004. I finally watched White Chicks. This was also kind of fun as well, but I will say that it does not age very well. It came in 2004 in the sense of, and it is a satire, like this is 2 black FBI agents who had to dress up as 2 white women, okay? All right, I get the satire, but it didn't age well for me, especially in the very early part of the movie. I was like, okay, this is just straight up offensive. This is not satire. This is just being offensive. Like, what are we doing? So the movie in general told a line to being a pretty good satire to just straight up offensive. So yeah, a satirical film that really worked well for at the time that it came out, and it aged itself not really well. So yeah, I think I gave it like 7 out of 10, so that's like a 3.5 star. Still enjoyable. It had its funny moments, and I really like that one scene where they did that "It's Tricky" dance. That was really, really fun. That was actually my favorite scene. But I swear though, my all-time favorite quote of the movie was towards the end about that one black guy. If you know who I'm talking about and that one scene, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it yet. I know it's over 20 years old, but still, I'm not going to spoil it. Then I also watched One of Them Days, 2025. This was actually pretty fun. It's Keke Palmer and SZA. They had actually pretty good on-screen chemistry, so that was really good. A lot of shenanigans was going on in that film. It was pretty fun, but also justice to that one redheaded black girl. She was definitely wronged a lot in that movie, but she was just on business for the most part, so I recommend it. I think I gave it also 7 out of 10. And then I watched The Wedding Banquet 2025, which I think is supposed to be a remake or something of the original Wedding Banquet film. There was another one that came out like decades ago, and it is the newer version. This was like a queer found family situation. It was actually really good. I like this one. Very emotional, very touching and stuff, very messy. But it was actually pretty good. I actually like this one. I think I gave it 8 out of 10, so like 4 stars. And then of course, everyone has been talking about it. Well, I don't know about everyone. I probably shouldn't say everyone has been talking about it and watching it. But if you've seen people, or if you have a certain part of the internet, you probably will never know that there's a lot of people who've watched Kpop Demon Hunters 2025, another film by Sony. This one was really, really fun. I love the soundtrack. I also, well, almost every song in the soundtrack. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I love Huntrix as like a K-pop girl group. I also love each member individually. I don't know who my favorite is. It's between Mira and Rumi. I don't know. I still really like Zoe though. Zoe is still a part of my heart. I mean, all the girls are for sure. Especially when they're together on screen. A great old time, okay? But I do think Mira is probably my favorite, even though I'm more like Rumi than Mira. But still, we're here. I will say though that it's not the best film as far as its plot. Like, I will say, as far as a major criticism for this film is that the plot progression, like the actual plot itself, the actual main story, it's not that well written. There are things that don't quite make sense. There are parts of it that doesn't make sense, that we don't quite focus on other parts, and some things are mostly just hollow. The whole enemies to lover romance between Rumi and Jinyu, which I don't know if it's really a romance, to be honest. There's definitely something there. It could have developed into something being a little bit more meaningful and emotional, but it's not that deep, y'all. Also, the Soldier Boys as a group, they could have had a little bit more personality, okay? Jinyu is like really like the main one right there who has at least something. The other 4, it don't even matter. I don't care about romance, baby, Abby, or mystery, okay? Like, come on. We need to get something more from those other 4. But it still was a very fun movie. I give it like a generous 8 out of 10. Even though really, if I thought more about the actual plot and the pacing and the lore and stuff, I would give it more like a 3 stars, so 6 out of 10. But I still really enjoyed the film. It was really, really fun. And I do hope that it will expand upon the story a little bit more, and also maybe focus a little bit more and give us more backstory in the future. If they do end up doing sequels, I won't be surprised if they do end up doing more sequels. But yeah, it's just one I would recommend checking out, whether you're a fan of K-pop music or not. But for someone who actually is not into K-pop, I really enjoy this one. And then last, but certainly not least, as far as the movies I've watched, this is definitely the best movie I watched in July, Sinners 2025. I did not get a chance to watch this in theaters, but my library was able to get the DVD, so I just borrowed the DVD, and I am so happy about that. In fact, my entire family and I, we actually watched the movie together, since like we've seen so many people talk about it, and we all really enjoyed it. I really love the fact that the movie was focusing on Black people wanting to find joy, wanting to be themselves, and finding a space, carving a space just for them. I really love that aspect about the film. I also love the vampire stuff. I knew the vampire stuff was gonna come, and I was like, oop, I was not disappointed. It was also kind of entertaining, it was very entertaining. I was kind of laughing, but I was also like, bro, wait, why did we get over here? Like, I was having a good time. Okay, I need to rewatch it to give a better, like, review of the movie, because I really do want to talk more about Sinners, and also compare it to, like, the Buffalo Hunter as well. Like, they are comparable in my mind, especially with certain themes. Not just the vampire stuff, y'all, but certain themes. But, like, I need to rewatch Sinners and take more notes on it, because, oh my gosh, was it, like, so good, so good. I think I give it, like, a 9 out of 10, but I do know for sure if I were to rewatch it, I would give it, like, a solid 10 out of 10. I love how it was shot. I like the casting, costuming. I also find it so fascinating how Michael B. Jordan was able to have, like, to be able to play the Smoke and Stack twins. That was really fascinating. I don't actually know how they quite did it. I need to look up how they managed to do that. Like, there's definitely some sort of technology that they did to do all that, but I want to know. But definitely deserves all the attention. I hope it has a lot of a critical acclaim by the time it's award season because it deserved it. Also, with my rewatch, I really want to listen to the soundtrack. I heard really good things with the soundtrack, and I need to listen to the soundtrack and the score because I got to, okay? Anyways, that's it for all the movies that I watched in the month of July. Let's talk about TV shows. Again, I'm going to go from worst to best. Worst is Big Mouth Season 8. Season 8 of Big Mouth is the final season, finally. And just to date myself a little bit, I have been watching the show since... How old was I? Was I 16 or 17 when I watched the first season of Big Mouth? And I have been watching the seasons ever since, but like I'm not that invested, honestly, in the story. I kept watching because it's so bafflingly bad, and so the concept of it is somewhat intriguing. Of like seeing middle schoolers just going through puberty, but when I was a teenager, I thought this was a show meant for teens to understand puberty, but really it's a show about adults who are trying to reminisce their time in puberty. That's really the actual idea. Even though the characters you follow are actual children, the idea of this show is for adults who went through puberty and stuff. Now, there is a little bit of sex added to it, just for educational purposes, for definitely since this is TV mature, there are teenagers who watch the show and have been watching the show for years. They are learning some things, but I don't particularly love how they went about it. I think, like, even though the style of it is indeed very weird and it's also very raunchy, kind of adult animation humor that I'm not quite a fan of, I don't find the show as funny. I think I found it a little bit funny in the first 2 seasons when I was a teenager, but now I'm in my early 20s, I just find it not very funny. It's not my sense of humor. But I will say I will check out, I think, Human Resources, that follows all of like the Homer monsters, the embodiments of like anxiety, disappointment, anxiety, depression, shame, all those kind of characters. So yeah, and they'll be following like actual adult humans. So I'll check out Human Resources. I think this kind of a show, I think Human Resources really works better as conceptually to me than Big Mouth, when we're following middle schoolers and then like early high schoolers. It was just really, really weird. And also season 8 was pretty boring, not gonna lie. Not much stuck to my mind. And then for some reason I was kind of watching season 1 of Ginny and Georgia, TV drama kind of show. I found Georgia, who's the mother of Ginny, or short for Virginia. I found Georgia to be an interesting character. Ginny's also pretty interesting, but she's just really, really annoying. She was such a little shit. Oh my gosh. Which is giving teenager, but also lacking any sense of empathy and nuance towards her mother, to the point that it was just very frustrating. I don't know if she ever will in that show, but to the looks of it, it doesn't seem like she will. So I'm just gonna leave it alone there. And then I finally rewatched season 3 of The Good Place. Really, really good season. I really am enjoying my time rewatching this show. In season 3, I really did not remember much. This rewatch is letting me know I really did not remember much of each season of the show, but season 3 was so fascinating. I really like how we still expanding upon the idea about people being good and bad, but also how human beings, we do change and improve over time when we are influenced by people who want to be good and better people. And then lastly, I finally started watching Abbott Elementary. I watched seasons 1 through 3 in July, and they were all really good. I really love the show. It's very, very funny. Who's my favorite character? I don't even know. Do I have a favorite character in that show? I don't know. Wait, I just realized I don't think of a favorite character in Abbott Elementary. I don't know. I mean, Jacob's not a favorite. I mean, no, he's not. Oh, wait, that's a lie. I'm sorry, that's a lie. Focus, damn it. Why is this camera? Okay, can you focus, please, before this camera dies? Come on, camera, work with me here. I'm sorry. I just lied to y'all. I do have a favorite character. His name is Gregory. He's my favorite. He's my favorite. For sure. Every other character I just have a fun time with. Mr. Johnson, very, very hilarious. Ava's a mess, but she's also really hilarious. Janine, endearing. She can be annoying, but she has her moments. Jacob also is just around the similar boat, but for very different reasons. Melissa, I'm here for. And who else am I? Mrs. Howard. Mrs. Barbara Howard. I like her too. She has her moments though, and she also irritates me, but I like her too. So yeah, very, very fun show. Love this sense of humor. Also, I love that the episodes are not super long. Can we go back to that actually, TV show episodes are not over 30 minutes or worse, closer to an hour? Can we go back to being under 30 minutes again, please? Like, please. I'd rather have so many episodes that are like less than 30 minutes than like very few episodes that are close to an hour. You're gonna get the same fucking runtime, okay? Just make the episodes shorter. I said what I fucking said. Anyways, that is it. That's all the TV shows I've watched. Not a lot here, but I watched the ones that are like, too bad. Still actually pretty good ones and then amazing ones. I gotta say, July, definitely up and down. It's more of a downward. It was a downward spiral of July. Very, very downward spiral. But I'm hopeful for August. I want to see where things are gonna go for me reading wise. I won't push myself to read a lot more in August. I think this reading slump is going to persist. But if that's the case, I'll make sure I'm still going to have something to talk about because I'm going to have TV shows and movies I'm going to be watching. Anyways, thank you all again for watching this video. If you made it this far, definitely thank you for the additional content regarding non-book related things. But, you know, it is what it is. If you like the video, like it. Comment down below, how was July for y'all? Did you read as much? Did you have a reading slump in July? What movies and TV shows did you watch in July? I'm also very curious. I need some recommendations, especially for movies. If you find any animated movies, whether it's new or just new to you, I also would like to know. Also, your thoughts also on Kpop Demon Hunters. Am I the only one who thinks like it's so fun and entertaining, but also quality-wise is not as great for its writing and plot and stuff and its lore? You know, I'm very, very curious. And if you're new here, like my vibe and also like my taste in movies and TV shows now, you know, maybe, consider subscribing if you have not already. Now, if you made it this far into the video, you're not sure what to say, but you want to leave me an emoji, let me know that you're here, you gotta leave me a vampire emoji, because clearly the best stuff that I've been watching is, like, vampire horror stuff, basically, with Sinners and the Buffalo Hunter. You gotta do it. Put it down to vampire. Anyways, thank you again for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!